My parents kicked me out and cut off my tuition when my sister got pregnant, however 6 years later. I 32F am currently a successful architect at a prestigious firm in Boston, leading major commercial development projects across New England. I'm engaged to a wonderful man, Nathan, 34 meters, who works as a project manager in sustainable development, and we're planning our wedding for next year. From the outside, my life looks perfect. I have a beautiful craftsman-style house that I designed substantial renovations for, a fulfilling career, and a loving relationship. However, I'm dealing with a complicated family situation that recently came to a head in a way that's making me question everything. To understand the current situation, I need to explain my family background in detail. I grew up in an upper-middle-class family in a suburban area of Connecticut. My father, Richard, 58 milliseconds, is a corporate lawyer at a well-established firm, and my mother, Phoebe, 56F, was a high school teacher at a private school until she quit her job 6 years ago. I also have a younger sister, Ashley, 24F, who was always the golden child in our family dynamic. From my earliest memories, the favoritism was clear, though my parents would vehemently deny it if confronted. When I was 8 and Ashley was 6, I got straight A's on my report card and was merely told that's expected of you, while Ashley got praised and taken out for ice cream for getting B's because she was trying her best. This pattern continued throughout our childhood. My achievements were expected and often overlooked, while Ashley's minimal efforts were celebrated extensively. I remember one particular incident when I was 15. I had spent months preparing for a national architecture competition for high school students, often staying up until 2 a.m. working on my design project. I ended up winning second place nationally, which included a small scholarship. My parents didn't even attend the award ceremony because Ashley had a regular soccer game that day. When I got home with my trophy, they barely looked up from watching TV and said that's nice before returning their attention to Ashley's dramatic retelling of how she almost scored a goal. Despite my parents' obvious favoritism, I excelled academically and personally. I was student body president, maintained a 4.0 GPA, and led several community service initiatives. Meanwhile, Ashley's behavior became increasingly concerning as she entered her teens. She started sneaking out at 14, and my parents' response was to tell me to keep a better eye on her. When she got caught shoplifting expensive makeup at 15, they blamed me for not giving her my allowance money when she clearly needed it. The most frustrating part wasn't just the favoritism, it was the constant expectation that I should sacrifice my own needs and interests for Ashley. When I was 16, I had saved up $3,000 from my part-time job at a local architecture firm, where I was filing papers and making coffee. I was planning to use it for a summer architecture program at Columbia University. However, when Ashley crashed her boyfriend's car, that she wasn't supposed to be driving, my parents borrowed my savings to help pay for the damages. They promised to pay me back, but never did. The summer program opportunity was lost, and with it, a chance to strengthen my college applications. Despite these setbacks, I managed to get accepted into a prestigious architecture program. My parents agreed to help with tuition and let me live at home during college to save money. This wasn't entirely altruistic. They wanted me around to help manage Ashley, who was now in high school and growing more rebellious by the day. I remember trying to talk to Ashley about her behavior multiple times. One conversation stands out vividly. It was about 3 months before everything fell apart. I found her sneaking back into the house at 3 a.m. on a school night. "Ashley, you need to be more careful," I whispered, helping her climb through the window. "You're in your senior year, and colleges look at more than just grades. Stop trying to be mom," she snapped back. "Just because your life is boring and all about buildings doesn't mean mine has to be." Looking back, I should have seen what was coming. Ashley was spending a lot of time with her then boyfriend, Tyler, 17 milliseconds, who had a reputation for being trouble. My parents were surprisingly permissive about their relationship, while they scrutinized every person I dated with intense suspicion. When I tried to express concern about Tyler, my mother accused me of being jealous of Ashley's active social life. Everything changed dramatically 6 years ago. Ashley, then a high school senior, came home one day and announced she was pregnant. Tyler was the father. I still remember that evening clearly. My mother crying hysterically, my father pacing the living room, and Ashley sitting on the couch with a mix of defiance and fear on her face. Somehow, in the chaos that followed, my parents managed to twist the situation and blame me for not watching her more carefully. The next day, my mother came to my room with news that would change my life forever. "You need to move out by the end of the week," she said, not even making eye contact. I was confused. What? Why? "The house isn't big enough for all of us, especially with Tyler moving in and a baby on the way. Ashley needs your room. Moving out would be a way to show support for your sister in this difficult time." I tried to reason with her. I was in my 3rd year of college, maintaining a 3.9 GPA while working part-time at a local architecture firm. I asked for just a few months to find an affordable apartment near campus, but she was adamant. The worst part came the following day when my father called me into his home office. He sat behind his massive oak desk, the one he'd always used to intimidate clients, and delivered another blow. "We won't be able to continue paying your tuition," he said, his voice clinical and detached. "We need that money for Ashley and the baby now. You're smart. You'll figure something out." I stood there, staring at the man who had always preached about the importance of education and responsibility, now cutting off his daughter who had done everything right. The irony was painful. I packed my belongings that night. As I was loading the last box into my car, my father stopped me in the driveway. For a moment, I thought he might change his mind. Instead, he handed me a sheet of paper, a list of women's shelters in the area. "Just in case," he said, then walked back inside. What followed was the darkest period of my life. I lived in my car for 4 months, parking in different Walmart lots each night for safety. I would shower at the campus gym, change in public restrooms, and store my professional clothes in my locker at the architecture firm where I worked part-time. I picked up a second job as a late-night barista, often going straight from one job to classes to another job. I reached out to several relatives for help, but they all refused. My Aunt Susan, 53F, who had always talked about how proud she was of my achievements, told me she didn't want to get involved in family drama. My grandparents said they were too old to deal with this situation. I barely survived on protein bars and coffee, sometimes going days without a proper meal. I worked on my assignments in the 24-hour campus library, often falling asleep at my desk. Despite everything, I maintained my GPA. Architecture became my escape. I poured all my pain and determination into my designs. Throughout this entire period, not once did my parents call to check if I was alive. Neither did Ashley. I called once after hearing she had given birth to a boy, but the conversation was brief and awkward. After that, 6 years passed without any contact. During those 6 years, I rebuilt my life from scratch. I graduated with honors, despite working 60-hour weeks while living in my car and later in a cramped room in a sketchy part of town. My final thesis project, a design for a sustainable community center with transitional housing, won several awards and caught the attention of a prestigious firm in Boston. I started as an entry-level architect, living in a tiny studio apartment and saving every penny I could. Each promotion felt like a victory over my past. Within 4 years, I was leading my own projects. I specialized in sustainable commercial development, earning a reputation for innovative designs that prioritized both environmental impact and human experience. I met Nathan 3 years ago at a sustainable development conference. He was presenting on green building initiatives, and I challenged one of his points during the Q&A session. Instead of getting defensive, he asked me to continue the discussion over coffee. That coffee turned into dinner, which turned into the most supportive and healthy relationship I've ever had. Nathan knows my full story. He was there when I bought my house, my first real home since being kicked out. He held me when I broke down after signing the papers, overwhelmed by the reality that I finally had a place where no one could force me to leave. He helped me renovate it, supporting my vision to transform it into a space that represented everything I'd achieved. Over these years, I occasionally heard bits about Ashley's life through mutual acquaintances. She married Tyler shortly after their son was born, but they divorced within 6 months. She was already pregnant with her second child by then, but that father disappeared completely after finding out about the pregnancy. 2 years later, she married a guy named Marcus, had another child with him, but that marriage ended when she had an affair. Now she's pregnant again, and apparently has no idea who the father is. Yesterday, just before bed, I received a call from an unknown number. It was my mother, calling after 6 years of silence. At first, she acted like nothing had happened, asking about my life and sounding interested in my achievements. For a moment, I felt like that little girl again, eager to share my accomplishments with my mom. I even started telling her about my engagement and my recent promotion to senior architect. Then came the real reason for our call. My parents want me to move back to Connecticut to help take care of Ashley and her children. My father is retiring soon, and they claim they're too old to handle 4 young children. They had the audacity to say it's my responsibility as the successful assistant to step up and help the family. "You've always been the responsible one," my mother said, her voice taking on that manipulative tone I remembered so well. "Ashley needs her big sister now more than ever. Family has to stick together." I felt a cold laugh bubble up inside me. "Family has to stick together?" I repeated. Where was this family when I was sleeping in my car? When I was working 2 jobs and barely eating? When I had no one to turn to? My mother tried to interrupt, but I continued. "You kicked me out, cut off my education funding, and abandoned me completely, all to support Ashley. Now that she's continued to make poor life choices and you're tired of dealing with the consequences, you expect me to give up my career, my relationship, and my life to clean up your mess again? I told her there was absolutely no way I would sacrifice my life for Ashley again and hung up. Since then, my phone has been blowing up with messages from relatives, the same ones who refused to help me 6 years ago, telling me I'm heartless and that family helps family. Nathan fully supports my decision to maintain my boundaries, but some friends suggest I should at least meet with them because they're still family and being vindictive won't heal old wounds. But I don't see this as vindictiveness. I see it as protecting the life I built from the ground up, alone, after being abandoned by the people who were supposed to protect me. Am I the asshole for refusing to help my sister and parents when they're clearly struggling? Update 1. First, thank you all for your overwhelming support and insights. The past 48 hours have been emotionally draining, with my phone constantly buzzing with messages from extended family members. The situation has developed in ways I didn't expect. My mother sent me detailed photos of Ashley's children, my nieces and nephews, along with a lengthy email describing their daily struggles. The oldest is now in kindergarten, showing early signs of behavioral issues. The second child has health problems that require frequent medical attention. The third is still a toddler, and now there's another one on the way. What really got to me was a message from an old family friend who's a teacher at Ashley's former high school. She told me that my parents have been taking out loans to cover Ashley's expenses and medical bills. They've already remortgaged their house, and my father has postponed his retirement indefinitely. The most surprising development was a direct message from Ashley herself. For the first time in 6 years, she reached out, not to apologize, but to explain that she's changed and really needs her big sister. She mentioned being in therapy now and recognizing her past mistakes. Part of me wants to believe her, but I've seen this pattern before. My fiancé, Nathan, suggested a compromise, offering financial support for the children's education through a trust fund, while maintaining emotional and physical distance from the family. It's an interesting proposition that would allow me to help the innocent children without getting directly involved in the family drama. I'm still processing all of this. The rational part of me knows I owe them nothing, but seeing those photos of the kids, who are innocent in all this, has stirred up complicated feelings. I'll update again once I've made a decision about Nathan's suggestion. Right now, I need time to think everything through without the constant pressure from family members. Update 2. Everything has changed dramatically in the past 24 hours. Last night, I received an emergency call from my mother. Ashley had been in a serious car accident. She was driving alone when another vehicle ran a red light and crashed into her car. Due to her pregnancy, the situation was critical. Without thinking, I jumped in my car and drove for hours to Connecticut. Walking into that hospital was surreal. My father looked aged beyond his years, pacing the hallway in his worn suit. My mother, seeing me, broke down completely. It was the first time I'd seen them in person in 6 years. The doctors explained that while Ashley's injuries weren't life-threatening thanks to the airbags, they had to perform an emergency C-section to save the baby. The premature infant is now in NICU with a guarded prognosis. What shocked me most was returning to my childhood home. My parents insisted I stay instead of getting a hotel, and I reluctantly agreed. Walking into my old room was like stepping through a time portal. Everything was exactly as I'd left it 6 years ago. My architecture drawings still pinned to the walls, my old desk untouched, even my high school trophies still perfectly arranged. It hit me then. They hadn't turned my room into space for Ashley after all. The whole needing the room excuse had been just that, an excuse. Meeting my nieces and nephew was another unexpected emotional experience. The oldest, Charlie, 6 milliseconds, shocked me by saying, "Aunt Rebecca, I know you from the pictures." Apparently, despite everything, my parents had told them about their aunt who builds beautiful buildings. The younger ones, Eva, 4F, and Lucas, 2 meters, were initially shy but warmed up quickly when I helped them build a tower with blocks. I've been here for 3 days now, and I'm discovering things that complicate my feelings further. While going through some old papers looking for Ashley's insurance information, I found a stack of unsent letters from my father. They were all addressed to me, dated throughout the past 6 years, apology letters he never mailed. Some of them were stained with what looked like tears. Nathan flew in yesterday to support me through this. Watching him interact with my nieces and nephew, teaching them simple engineering concepts through play, made me realize how much these kids deserve better than the chaos they've been born into. Ashley is now stable but still in and out of consciousness. The baby's situation remains critical. I've taken emergency leave from work, but I'll need to return to Boston next week to handle some crucial project deadlines. I still don't know how to feel about everything. My anger hasn't disappeared, but it's now tangled with other emotions I can't quite name. The unsent letters, the preserved room, the kids who somehow know about me. It's all forcing me to reevaluate my understanding of the past 6 years. I need to head back to the hospital now for an update on the baby's condition. I'll write more when I'm back in Boston next week. For now, I'm just trying to take things one day at a time. Update 3. I've just returned to Boston after another week in Connecticut, this time with Nathan. The experience was complicated. Ashley specifically requested that I bring him, saying she wanted to meet the person who makes her sister happy. The dynamics were both awkward and revealing. During our stay, I discovered something that shook me. While helping my mother organize some medical documents, I found years of therapy records for Ashley. She's been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and has been struggling with it since her teens, something my parents never told me. The multiple pregnancies and relationship issues coincided with manic episodes. This information doesn't excuse their treatment of me, but it adds another layer to process. The most significant moment came during a private conversation with Ashley in her hospital room. She was more lucid than I've seen her in years, probably due to proper medication management after the accident. She admitted that she'd been jealous of my stability and success, even back in high school. "You made everything look so easy," she said, and I felt like the family disappointment in comparison. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Nathan's presence turned out to be crucial. He noticed things I was too emotionally involved to see. During dinner one night, he pointed out how my father couldn't maintain eye contact with me, showing signs of deep shame rather than the indifference I'd always assumed. He also observed my mother's nervous habit of starting sentences and then stopping abruptly, as if afraid of saying the wrong thing. The kids have become a significant factor in my emotional equation. My oldest nephew, Charlie, showed me his architecture drawings, crude but earnest attempts to copy pictures of my projects that my parents apparently showed him. The younger ones have started calling Nathan uncle, which affects him more deeply than he expected. The baby's condition has stabilized, though she'll need to stay in NICU for at least another month. During one of our hospital visits, a nurse mentioned how my parents have been taking shifts sleeping in the waiting room, refusing to leave their grandchildren alone. They're exhausted, physically and emotionally. I've made some practical decisions. I'm arranging for a family therapist who specializes in intergenerational trauma. I've also consulted with my firm about working remotely for a few days each month. However, I've maintained my stance about not moving back to Connecticut. My life and career are in Boston now. Nathan and I had a long talk on the drive back to Boston. He said something that stuck with me. Sometimes the hardest part of healing isn't forgiving others. It's forgiving yourself for still caring. This hit home because I've been feeling guilty about not being able to maintain my anger in its pure, protective form. Tomorrow, I have an important client meeting that I need to focus on. It's strange how normal work responsibilities feel both trivial and anchoring right now. I'll update again once I've had our first family therapy session scheduled for next week. Update 4. I need to write this update because something significant happened during my parents' visit to Boston last weekend. Yes, you read that correctly. They came to Boston, supposedly to discuss serious matters about the family situation. At first, I agreed to meet them at a neutral location, a quiet cafe near the public garden. However, they insisted on seeing my house, saying they wanted to understand my life better. After consulting with Nathan, I reluctantly agreed, setting clear boundaries about the duration of their visit. Their reaction to my home was unexpected. My father, usually stoic, became emotional when he saw my architecture awards displayed in my home office. But what truly blindsided me was their real agenda. They pulled out documents showing they've been secretly setting aside money for me since the day they kicked me out. My father broke down completely, something I've never seen before. He explained that they had created a separate savings account, putting in the equivalent of my college tuition every month for 6 years. With interest, it's now a substantial sum. Their explanation? They felt too ashamed to face me directly, so they planned to leave it in their will. This revelation led to an intense confrontation. I couldn't hold back anymore and unleashed years of pent-up anger. "Do you think money can fix what you did?" I shouted. I lived in my car. I skipped meals. I worked until I was exhausted while trying to maintain my grades. Then my father said something that stopped me cold. "We don't expect forgiveness. We just want you to know that your suffering has haunted us every single day." He proceeded to show me a journal he'd kept, documenting every achievement of mine he'd tracked through professional networks and social media over the years. He'd noted my first major project, my promotions, even the Sustainable Design Award I won last year. My mother, who had been quietly crying, finally spoke up about Ashley's mental health history in detail. Apparently, they'd seen similar patterns of behavior in Ashley's childhood but ignored the signs, focusing instead on controlling me as the stable child. She admitted their parenting approach had been catastrophically wrong. The conversation shifted when they brought up their latest concerns. They revealed that Ashley's ex-husband Marcus is seeking full custody of their child, using her mental health history and the accident as leverage. They're worried this could trigger another breakdown just as she's starting to stabilize with her new medication regimen. Here's where things get complicated. They're not asking me to move back anymore. Instead, They're requesting my help in finding a good psychiatric facility in Boston for Ashley and the baby once she's released from NICU. They want to sell their house in Connecticut and move closer to help with the other children while Ashley gets proper treatment. Nathan, who stayed nearby during this conversation to offer support if needed, later pointed out something crucial. They're finally acknowledging their mistakes and trying to find actual solutions instead of just dumping responsibilities on me. I'm still processing everything. The money they save doesn't erase the past, but their consistent, secret attempt at restitution shows a level of remorse I hadn't considered before. The journal my father kept feels like a painful testament to what could have been a father proud of his daughter's achievements, but too ashamed to express it directly. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with a family law attorney to understand the implications of Ashley's custody battle and what role, if any, I should play in it. I'm also researching psychiatric facilities that specialize in postpartum mental health care. I haven't given them an answer about helping with Ashley's treatment arrangements. Part of me wants to maintain strict boundaries, but another part recognizes that this might be a chance for real, systemic change in our family dynamic with professional help and proper boundaries this time. I'll update again once I've made a decision about my involvement in these new developments. Update 5. After much consideration and several family therapy sessions, I've reached some final decisions about my relationship with my family moving forward. First, regarding my parents' request about Ashley's treatment, I've helped them find a reputable psychiatric facility in Boston that specializes in both mental health and postpartum care. However, I made it clear that my involvement would be strictly professional and limited. I used my professional network to connect them with necessary resources, but I won't be directly involved in Ashley's day-to-day care. The savings account my parents created has been converted into a trust fund for Ashley's children's education with me as the trustee. This arrangement ensures the money will be used appropriately while maintaining professional boundaries. Nathan helped set this up through his contacts in financial planning. My relationship with my family has evolved into something I never expected. While I won't be moving back to Connecticut or taking on any caretaking responsibilities, I've established a structured way of maintaining contact that protects my own well-being. We've agreed on regular video calls with the children and continuing family therapy sessions with emergency-only direct contact with Ashley. My mother continues to call frequently, but I've noticed a significant change in her approach. Instead of guilt-tripping or making demands, she now asks permission before sharing family updates and respects my boundaries when I say I'm too busy to talk. The most surprising development came from my father. He started seeing his own therapist and sent me a formal, written apology detailing specific instances where he failed me as a father. It wasn't the generic "I'm sorry for everything" I expected, but rather a thoughtful acknowledgement of specific harmful actions and their impact on my life. Ashley has been admitted to the treatment facility and is showing signs of improvement. The baby is finally out of NICU and healthy. While I maintain emotional distance, I've arranged for a child psychologist to work with her older children to help them cope with these changes. Nathan and I are proceeding with our wedding plans, and I've made the difficult decision not to have my family deeply involved. They'll be invited as guests, but traditional family roles in the ceremony will be filled by friends who supported me during my darkest times. Looking ahead, I'm at peace with my decisions. This isn't the complete reconciliation some might hope for, but it's a carefully structured relationship that protects my mental health while acknowledging the complexity of family bonds. I've learned that it's possible to care about family members without sacrificing my own well-being or succumbing to unhealthy dynamics. My story doesn't have a neat, happy ending where all is forgiven and forgotten. Instead, it has a realistic conclusion where boundaries are maintained, professional help is utilized, and relationships are redefined on healthier terms. Sometimes that's the best we can do, and that's okay.